everybody. Thursday, September 10th. I'm Hank Linderman. I'm running for Congress here in Kentucky's 2nd District. It's just south of Louisville, goes on down to Bowling Green, and from Owensboro across to Danville. This is a picture of our guest today, Aftyn Behn, who is one of the more inspiring political folks I have met, and I've never seen her dressed anything like that. Normally she's dressed like everybody else, so I'm going to have to definitely ask her about her outfit. How are you all doing? It is Thursday, like I say, September 10th, 2020, Groundhog Day, over and over again. Lots of news yesterday, of course, because of Bob Woodward's book about President Trump, and this does call for that. Hey, by the way, I see that Mark Andes is here. I see Mary Richardson is here. Bill McNichol is here. Cindy Franklin is here. Barbara Tichy. So glad you all are here, and you all know. Please share the broadcast. We need to let as many people know as possible about what we're doing here, because one of the things we talk about here at Getting Angry is the idea that it's not okay just to get angry. We're going to have to maintain our cool. We have to, it's too easy. The anger can turn into disappointment in a lot of ways. It can turn into depression. It can turn into wanting to just pull yourself away from the whole thing. And I don't think that's good for the country. I don't think it's good for us. I think we need to be involved. And, I think, in fact, this is something that's occurred to me today. I think that the future of campaigning in districts like the 2nd, this is a district that's a so-called safe Republican district, but it is rural. And I've been talking over and over again about the importance of rural America, and that by ignoring rural America, we allowed a con man like Trump to come in and play his con game. But there's not always a lot of money, to run in a district like this. So I am believing in the future of citizens getting involved as volunteers in campaigns. And so that's one of the things I will be doing, regardless of how this race turns out. And who knows how it's going to go? Who knows how, what the end is, what's coming. But I'm expecting to stay involved no matter what. I'm expecting to be working to get as many normal citizens, many of us, as possible involved. I wasn't involved in politics until 2018. I talked about it a lot, talked about it a whole lot. But I've got involved in 2018, and I'm really glad I did. I think it's really important that you as a citizen, all of us, learn to get involved. Chris Pritchard's here. Chris knows to share. He probably's already done it. But don't you like that sound? John Alma Barnett is here. John Alma, by the way, is a friend and an activist. I know John Alma will share. She's from Bowling Green, Kentucky, and she put together a group of people. I think there were about 10 folks on a Zoom call with me last night. If any of you want to put together a Zoom call with me, you know how to find me. And it was a fantastic discussion. I really enjoyed it. So that's one of the ways you can get involved, is get involved with your friends, invite a candidate over for a Zoom chat. I think that's a great way to go. Well, let's do some of the work we got to do. We've got to look at our numbers, sad to say. And look at this. We're over 195,000 dead. Yesterday, the numbers came in at 1,208 deaths. We always know that the numbers at any particular day may not be exactly accurate, but over time, we're getting the picture. And, look at that. Deaths per total cases per million, 20,000, and deaths per million, 589. We are still number one in the world in terms of cases. We are rapidly going to make it to 7 million cases. And it's a very difficult time for the whole country. Fortunately, though, we've got a little bit of good news, which I'll show you here in a moment. looking at California, remains number one in total cases, although look at that, new cases are coming up in Texas. And of course, number one in overall deaths remains New York. Let's see. This is Kentucky, and the bad news is Kentucky has moved up, or maybe Kansas has moved down. I'm not sure. But that's a lot of deaths. I think that's 16 deaths. That's very high for Kentucky. But again, this could be a statistical anomaly because of, the stats not getting turned in over the weekend or whatever. So we don't pay too much attention to any particular day. We want to look at trends. Now, here's an interesting trend. These are new cases per day by the states and the territories. And notice that new cases since August 1st, new cases per day is actually dropping. And I think delaying the entrance of kids into school and doing a lot of online stuff, looks like we dodged a bullet here. We have not heard. I saw a scary story saying there were going to be 250,000 cases because of Sturgis, the motorcycle rally. I don't think that's quite accurate. There's going to be some cases, but I spoke with a neighbor today, and he said he thought that this business of wearing masks and being socially distant and washing our hands all the time and all that, he thinks that's here to stay for quite some time, and I think he's probably right. So there we are. Let's go on to, I have so many buttons to push. So this is a website at vote.org. You can see early voting by state, and I've shown this early piece right here of Alabama. We're concerned particularly with Kentucky, but we're not going to go through all 50 states. But I wanted you to see that you have the state, the early in-person voting begins on which date, and then it ends on which date, and more information. So now let's look at Kentucky in particular. Let's see, here we go. So Kentucky in particular begins early election in person, meaning you can show up at a polling place and vote 21 days, probably at the courthouse, but you're going to have to call your local election office to find out. 21 days before Election Day, and then the Saturday before Election Day. So that's 3 days before the election. You can't, the early voting stops. And if you haven't voted by then, early voting, you're going to have to show up on the day of voting. But the other way around it is you can register for early voting, and that is something else we ask you to consider doing. In Kentucky, you've got till October 5th to register, first of all. You've got to register, folks, and you can do it online. You go to govotekentucky.com. You need to do it. You need to get yourself registered. We talk all the time about how many people did not vote in the 2016 election, and 100 million people apparently who could have voted didn't. 100 million people could have voted and didn't. And I think, as I recall, was it 53 million voted for Hillary Clinton and 50 for Donald Trump? So that means there's a tremendous group of people out there that are not being heard. And if you're one of them, please do the right thing, get involved. My opinion is we should be voting. We should make voting a national holiday. It should be easy to vote. It should be secure. I believe in paper ballots. They're easier to keep track of. But look, I notice I'm running out of time. My goodness, I'm doing all this yammering, and want to talk to Aftyn about this stuff. Let's see, where is, here we go. So this is indivisible.com or indivisible.org probably. And I'd suggest you go to that website and have a look at it. Now, we're getting ready to have Aftyn here, so I'm going to call her on the phone. I'm going to hold off on showing you her picture. Let's see if she's going to pick up. One ringy dingy.
Hello.
Aftyn.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you doing?
Great. I'm great. How are you doing?
Well, that's a dangerous damn question these days. I'm going to show everybody your picture because I think we have to deal with that first.
Okay.
So you sent this picture to me, and you've got a lovely dog with you.
Yeah.
Tell me about the dog.
The dog's name is Frankie with a Y because I'm Aftyn with a Y. And he is my Marie Antoinette prop. If you've ever seen the movie directed by Sophia Coppola, Marie Antoinette, she has to trade, the character of Marie Antoinette trades a pug for a French dog when she moves. And so I have a pug, and he was an excellent prop.
He's beautiful. He's just beautiful. And I had never seen you in an outfit like that, so that kind of threw me when you sent that and said that was the picture you wanted to use. Because normally you're kind of dressed in, working professional attire.
Well, it's funny because I think the groups in Tennessee, everyone knows me as Marie Antoinette. And so I think it's a character that in Tennessee I'm pretty infamous for, if you will. In Kentucky, not so much. So.
Oh, do you show up at Indivisible meetings looking like this?
Well, it started as an effort to troll Diane Black, who's the former House Representatives Chair of the Finance Committee. And during the 2017 congressional fight, she proposed a budget that cut Medicare and Medicaid and student loans. And so she lives in a 16,000 square foot chateau in one of the poorest counties in Tennessee. And so it was an effort to troll her. And then it spiraled as she ran for governor in 2018. And now as people need plutocrats to show up at, for some political theater, I am at their beck and call in Tennessee. So.
I'm trying to think of which plutocrat I could come as sometime.
The Monopoly Man. I know that oftentimes it's, especially in political theater since 2016 with Trump, it ends up being the Monopoly Man and Marie Antoinette. So fortunately, I only have one of the costumes. So
I would not want to wear I would, if I needed to, wear the Marie Antoinette costume, but I would probably look for something a little different. And I have a couple of thoughts on that, and I'll work that out with you. But the idea of a French political character is very appealing. Okay, well, look, let's talk about Indivisible, because let's pretend that a lot of folks here, I know there's some folks from Indivisible in Danville, so I saw Jim Porter is here, and I'm sure that, yes, and you know Jim, and this is how I met you, was through the folks at Danville's Indivisible. And when I won the primary in 2018, we got in a vehicle and drove across the state. And the largest crowd, the most organized crowd, the crowd that was the most enthusiastic was the crowd in Danville, and it was all these Indivisible folks that I've come to know and love. So tell everyone about Indivisible.
Yeah, so Indivisible started at the tail end of the election, 2016. It started as a Google Doc, actually. The co-executive directors were congressional staff members during the Tea Party, which were, early 2010. And so they wrote a Google Doc using Tea Party tactics to then combat the Trump administration. And so within a few months, there were all these organic groups that had popped up all across the country in every congressional district. And so I think it was a moment in time when not so politically active folks, were grieving the loss, but also looking for something to do and plug into. And so they found the Google Doc and started their own groups. And so in the state of Kentucky, I think we have maybe 5 to 7 active chapters, but in states like California and New York, there's over 300 groups. So,
wow. And I think that's fascinating that you adopted that the group adopted Tea Party tactics. I've never heard that before, but that makes total sense in retrospect.
They were the loudest folks in the room, and I think that especially a lot of bird dogging, a lot of letters to the editor placed in rural newspapers, and so what would happen is that a congressional rep would have to that was in power at the time the Tea Party took hold would have to stop everything and deal with this constituent contact and this negative press, and so my bosses, the co-executive directors, decided, well, let's apply that to the Trump administration and the Republican Party.
Wow! Now, are you the What is your term? Are you the director of Kentucky, Tennessee Indivisible?
No, I just got a promotion. I'm now an organizing manager, which I don't really know. Well, anyways, but no, I support my role is supporting the groups across Tennessee and Kentucky. So, and I'm very lucky to have that role.
Well, they didn't name you queen.
No, I think I have to be wearing the wig in order for that to happen.
Right, the Queen of Tennessee, the Queen of Kentucky. I think I think you should have a negotiation with them because.
Well, and there is a Versailles, right? So I think it would be apropos for that to maybe happen. So
I think that makes sense. I think it totally does make sense. So, so if someone wants to get involved with Indivisible, how do they do it?
Yeah, so you if you're not familiar with the groups, once again, we have maybe 5 to 7 active groups across the state, from Danville to Louisville to Breathitt County. And so, if you're just wanting to get rid of Trump and you have a more federally focused, you can check out indivisible.org. We've got a lot of wonderful electoral programming happening at the federal level. So we've got phone banks and texting almost on a daily basis for you to plug into. If you want to connect with a local group, I am happy to give my email out. But there's also a map that you can look at to determine if there is a group in your area.
Yes, that's right. I saw that you can type in your zip code and it'll search, but you can also just sign up by email, put your email in, tell them your zip code, and I imagine they'll connect you. That
is right. Yes. And then as part of, since it's Kentucky, the groups organize a monthly Ditch Mitch call, which is really exciting. This is a group that the Kentucky groups have been able to touch base with Indivisible groups across the country that have helped them fundraise, tens of thousands of dollars for billboards, have helped them come up with strategy. One group, Santa Cruz Indivisible, actually designed the billboard that's up in Breathitt County right now. So there's a lot of cross collaboration amongst Indivisible groups.
Are you talking about the Orchard? Is it the Orchard City group that you're talking about?
that was one of the groups. It's a lot of California, Chicago, and New York groups that are, obviously very interested in getting rid of McConnell, and they feel the best groups in Kentucky.
Yes. Well, okay. So what happens on November 4th to Indivisible?
Well, we are planning for a few scenarios, and so there's a lot of, I think, planning as to determine how groups are going to respond should Trump refuse to concede, should Biden win and Trump refuse to concede. If Trump wins and we don't win the Senate or resume the House, so there's just a lot of different scenarios, and I think groups like Indivisible, especially on the national front, are on the front lines of trying to determine how to mobilize depending on the position on November. I think at Indivisible, with my groups in Tennessee and Kentucky, a lot of them work in coalition with one another, with the progressive organizations in the state, and I'm excited to see, how their programming unfolds into 2021, especially with municipal elections in Kentucky as well as state legislative session.
There's a question, by the way, from Mary Richardson, and it says, would this group work for you? So I'm going to show the screenshot of, I'm actually endorsed by Indivisible, and Aftyn had something to do with that. So Aftyn, thank you for, helping facilitate that. I'm proud to be endorsed by Indivisible, and I think this is the second time I've been endorsed. So
yeah, you have. And I think it's important to note that Indivisible is one of the few organizations, especially in the rural South, that endorse and give money to congressional candidates. So I know in Tennessee and Kentucky, it's very rare that a national organization endorses in races that some might deem as not winnable. We know that it's the long haul. And I would like to praise Indivisible that we do endorse rural candidates. We give you a contribution from our PAC, and as well as, organic endorsement content in terms of graphics, as well as the groups can order merchandise. So I'm one of the few unique organizations that does that.
I attended a meeting in Orchard City, which is Santa Clara County. Is there more than one Indivisible in Santa Clara County? I think it's just.
Oh, they have a lot. They're saturated with Indivisible groups.
Inside Santa Clara County?
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, I think there's one for every neighborhood.
Oh my goodness. Well, I went to the Orchard City meeting, looking for friends. I mean, this was before COVID, so it was in January. And I even got allowed to speak. But that was a working group. They had 100 people showing up at a Unitarian church, and they had tables set up. I'll tell you, by the way, one of the tricks that I do as a candidate is if there's a meeting that begins at 5, I show up at 4:30 or sometimes even 5 o'clock, or 4:30 or 4 o'clock. I show up at least a half an hour, sometimes an hour ahead of time, so that I can help set up chairs and tables, because the people that are there early are the ones who are really committed. And so I got to meet Celeste, who was in charge of that group, and she recognized me right away, and it was quite a thing. But the thing that was inspiring was this group got in, and they sat down at their tables, 5 and 6 of them. I think they brought some food in, so they had a little bit of food to eat. But they sat down and started filling out postcards. They started working immediately, and that continued during the entire meeting. There was also a very funny thing. Celeste has a rubber duck that she squeezes that makes noise. So if you're told you have 2 minutes, she squeezes the rubber duck to the general amusement of the group. So when you're speaking, you really don't want to get the duck. But it was a very inspiring group. So, I don't know if you're aware of this, but my campaign includes a lot of people that are volunteering. And I'm having this discussion with myself. I believe that the future is going to be, especially in districts like this that are difficult, that, when people contribute, especially people who want to contribute, who are willing to contribute a significant amount of money, they want to believe they can win. And some of these districts are not winnable in the first time around.
Right.
So getting involved with volunteers, and I'm wondering if that's something that Indivisible would be willing to look at, to consider the idea of helping train volunteers to help campaigns that would be using volunteer helpers.
Well, I think, we've already got systems in place here. Indivisible, and I think for those folks that don't know, Indivisible is on the soft side of campaigns, which means that we're an independent expenditure. So we can't coordinate with the campaigns or candidates in the way that you would just sign up, for example, with KDP and go ahead and phone bank for McGrath, for example, or Hank Linderman. So on our end, we do cultivate volunteer groups to be doing voter contact. And what's really exciting about Indivisible's voter contact is that we have, because we're not, calling from the Democratic Party, we are able to touch a lot of voters that may be turned off from, a call from the local county party in terms of being an independent voter or talking about the issues. So, and I think, we have a really lofty goal of contacting, I'm going to say, in the millions of voters this election cycle. And groups like Indivisible are even more important because of the pandemic, because candidates a lot of them aren't able to scale out their campaigns in the way that they would in a traditional non-pandemic year, if you will.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is very, very difficult. In 2018, I was able to get in the vehicle and drive for a few hours and be someplace and work for several hours and meet with people and then drive back a couple hours. I can't do any of that now. And I think that's true of a lot of campaigning. I've gone to some events, but everyone's very cautious and the attendance is not as big as we would like to see because everyone is so concerned about the virus. Well, now I want to ask you just to find out how your life is going right now. Are you sleeping very much? How many hours a day are you working?
I'm actually, in 2018, I was probably working 90 to 100-hour weeks, and I had a nervous breakdown. And so I have learned a lot since midterms, and part of that is, as a political organizer, making sure that you are taking care of yourself, that you are, going on walks and practicing yoga, because, I understand that for me, this is the most important election of my lifetime, but the work continues after Trump, right? And even if Biden is president, we can't just sit back. It's not like racism is cured because Biden is president. And so I challenge everyone that, we have to be in it for the long haul, especially in states like Tennessee and Kentucky, where we're building that progressive infrastructure, where we're building to win some of these rural congressional districts like yours.
Yes.
And so, please take care of yourself, now until after November as well.
So I wonder if you would be willing, I'm going to spring this on you, and you please say no if you don't want to. No is a complete sentence. We have a game we play called Name That Republican.
Oh, I would absolutely love to play it. I'm excited.
Okay. Now, I haven't given you any kind of warning about this except that the game existed. So let's see how you do. You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Donald Trump is everything we hear and teach our kids not to do in kindergarten.
Ooh.
Now, I have another quote from her if you want to hear another example of the same
I would like to phone in my second. Yes, I would like to phone in my second.
Let's hear the second.
What about his truthfulness? Did you think he was a truthful person?
Yes, in every instance that I dealt with him, he was truthful, he listened, and he was great to work with.
I'm trying to think of a female Republican that's not Sarah Palin or Kellyanne Conway.
Shall I give you a hint?
Michelle Bachmann.
No, that was a good guess, though. She's more current than that, and she served as a ambassador to the United Nations.
Oh, Samantha Powers. No?
It's Nikki Haley.
Oh, yes. Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm going to give you a super easy one now. You ready?
Okay.
Super
I'm ready.
easy. You're going to get this one.
Leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream. The best is yet to come.
Okay, it's the brunette, and I can't pronounce her last name. It seems French, starts with a D.
She's the girlfriend of Donald Trump Jr., Kimberly Guilfoyle.
There we go. Yes. All right. So almost had that one. Couldn't name her by name, but yet I know her presence and the meme that developed as a result of that presentation.
Now I'm going to trick you a little bit.
Okay.
This is a Republican. This is also a Republican.
Now, on Friday noon, I am to become a private citizen. I am proud to do so. I look forward to it. Thank you, and good night.
Is it Nixon?
No, but very close. Close.
I'm 1 for 3. But who is it? Who is it?
That is Dwight Eisenhower.
Oh,
Now, that was before he left office. Now, here's what Donald Trump says about leaving office. You'll, of course, know this.
Can you give a direct answer? You will accept the election?
I have to see. Look, I have to see. No, I'm not going to just say yes. I'm not going to say no. And I didn't last time either.
Quite a difference.
Yeah, and I think, I was yesterday I spent the afternoon interviewing some of my rural indivisible groups across the country. And the question I asked them was, in this moment in time, ahead of November, how are you feeling? And one of them said very fearful. And I think, we're living in an unprecedented time where the truth is fake news. And if you try to present facts, it's not true. We're facing armed militias, and it's a very scary time. And I challenge everyone who is feeling fearful to be doing as much as they can to affect the outcome of the results, but know that, as I said, organizations like Indivisible, as well as orgs at this national table that are, executing all the scenario planning, are working really hard to figure this out and to put the pieces in place should whatever outcome happen.
Yes, because it will be too late come November 4th. I spoke to a group yesterday, and they said, yes, we're going to be sure we vote on November 4th. No. Or someone in the group said that. They had just slipped and made a mistake. No, we're voting on November 3rd. And in Kentucky, you want to be sure you're registered before October 5th. October 5th is the last day. And, of course, that'll be the day the computer is busy or the lines are torn down so that it doesn't work. Well, Aftyn, I'm so glad to have you here. I hope you'll come back sometime. There's obviously a lot of work to do, and especially in rural districts where, frankly, Democrats have not been as active as they should have been over the last 20 years. But we'll put the work in, we'll put the time in, and thanks to organizations like Indivisible, it makes it feel like there's a possibility of making a difference here. And I want to thank
Yeah,
you.
especially to the Indivisible groups. And I can't, express how grateful I am for them and their work that they're doing in Kentucky.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Aftyn. And it's lovely to speak with you. And let's talk again.
All right. Sounds good. Have a great afternoon. Thanks, Hank.
Okay. You too.
All right.
Thanks
Bye.
so much. Well, that was Aftyn, and she's just a wonderful human being. She shows up at events. She does what she needs to do. She does work very hard. She showed up at an event last year that we put on in Louisville, which was the Matt Bevin retirement party. And Aftyn showed up and stayed all afternoon and was encouraging and connected with Democrats there, and just was, she's an important part of a very important organization. So I urge you all to have a look at Indivisible, see if you can get involved. And I think that's it. That's about all I've got to say. I kind of want to hear one more Republican. You all know him. You know him. Here he is.
Donald Trump is a delusional narcissist and an orange-faced windbag.
You all know who that is, don't you? His number's coming up in 2022. That's, of course, Rand Paul. Well, okay. Thank you all for being here. I think I have a guest tomorrow. I'm going to hope that James DeWeese, who's a representative of the Teamsters, will be here tomorrow, but he hasn't confirmed yet, and I haven't chased after him. So I'm going to I'm going to finish this and then go reach out to James and hope that he'll be able to be with us tomorrow. But either way, I'll be here tomorrow, 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern, getting angry. Folks, it's okay to get angry. Use it to fuel your fire. All right. Love you all. Take care.